given the opportunity to sacrifice their own needs for someone else's, most people will choose to stay alive. Now, what does that mean? That's computer scientists and researchers found and reported this in this week's Science magazine. The study was conducted in relation to programming self-driving cars. Writing about the results in the New York Times, John Markoff says that we've been struggling with the moral problems of who to save in an emergency since humans began struggling with moral problems. But now those problems and the solutions to them need to be programmed into our future autonomous vehicles. Now, these studies are some of the first that ask people not what they think is morally right, but what they want. The surveys presented different situations with a different number of random pedestrians that could be saved versus saving yourself or saving a family member. Participants were also asked whether they wanted to accept government regulation over these sorts of algorithmic life-saving decisions. Most do not, not surprisingly. So this is so fascinating. We already make these decisions all the time.
Snap decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and, snap decisions and not also snap decisions. When we were talking about the, moral responsibility in developing the self-driving car, we talked about this a few weeks ago. I brought up the point when you buy a big car, when you buy an SUV, you're essentially making the choice, my safety is more important than, a pedestrian safety, because that's what you're saying. You're buying a big, safe car, but if you hit a pedestrian with that big, safe car, it's going to do more damage than if you hit it with a small car. I mean, so we've been making these decisions. We just don't like to think about it very much.
And we don't like to admit it
right.
either. I mean, you might not be buying that big vehicle because you will win and the pedestrian will die. You might be buying it because it's the size that you need to fit your family in or whatever. But
right, so that's a decision for you. It's not for everyone else.
Well,
and
yes,
it's not
you're
for the
right.
environment
You're making
also.
a very selfish
decision. Yeah, it is a selfish decision, but you don't really think about it. It's never advertised in that way.
Right. Man, programming for death is exactly what people fear about robots. Right? Giving a robot or a machine the power, the ability to decide who lives and who dies. More and more, and I think I said this the other week when we had the guest on talking about this, more and more, I don't know if we can pull this off. Like, I don't know if there's ever a right answer or a good enough answer that everyone's going to be like, okay, yeah. Like in the case of this study shows the majority of people feel that the passenger should be sacrificed over a pedestrian that happens to be out on the street. Who on earth is going to buy a car where they know that they are the one that is going to be sacrificed? Like, I don't know that anyone is going to choose that. Mm-hmm. They think that if they're putting a lot of money into something or choosing to ride with something, if it happens to be, a service where you don't own, but you choose to, ride as a passenger or whatever, like, you're not going to choose the thing that's going to sacrifice you. No one would do that.
Well, you're not going to choose it when given the choice and having time to think about it. But I mean, you always hear stories of people who run back into burning buildings, people who sacrifice their lives. They're not just like, do I want to die in order to save these strangers when I might be leaving my children without a mother or father? Like, no, you would say no. But people don't. I mean, it's a split decision. It's like, I'm going to do it. It's the way we're built. Some people, I guess, and some people not, to just run back into that burning building. But that's not the same as these thought out decisions or someone programming it. And I think, you say like, I don't think we're going to get there. We'll get there. Like, whether or not we want to accept it as how these cars are programmed will be or whether we just be like, okay, well, I guess it's programmed to do something. I don't want to know.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the question is, will people know how it's programmed, or will we reach a point where it's like, if we're going to do this, people have to not know how it's being decided. But that's a lot of power to put in somebody's hands. Whose hands does that power go into? Does it go into the government to regulate? Probably, and to some degree. Does it go into the manufacturer? I don't want a manufacturer deciding who lives and who dies. That's where I have a hard time understanding how we ever get to a point where everyone is cool with the decision that's being made about it. Mm-hmm. Because split decision, based on pure adrenaline, based on a situation that just suddenly happens in front of you, everybody understands that because beep happens, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it happens out of nowhere, and you do what you can. But thinking about the ethics in advance and then choosing to spend your money into something, not, either not knowing how or who it's going to sacrifice, or knowing that's an entirely different scenario. And I don't know that anybody's ever going to feel okay with that. I almost feel like if we're going to do this, we have to eliminate the transitional period where there's a mixture of, driving and self-driving cars where there's pedestrians on the side of the road, and we need to jump and this is impossible. We need to jump immediately to the point to where the infrastructure is built up, where everybody is in an autonomous vehicle, and there are these totally regulated, thought out, planned paths for everything, and that there are no accidents because it's all programmed, and that's impossible.
Well, that means no pedestrians either?
Yes, because I'm talking about flying cars, okay? Put it up in the air. This is what we need to jump to next. Let's get away from all this autonomous vehicle stuff.
That's a really dystopian world. You're like, no more pedestrians. If we just get rid of the pedestrians, no one walks anywhere.
Pedestrians have to go somewhere different.
Okay.
I'm not saying this is possible. I'm just saying maybe this should be part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's a conversation that I think we'll probably be having many more times.
I agree.
Bigger minds need to solve this. So please go solve it.
Because you don't like my solution.
I don't like your no more walking around solution. No, I'm not willing to accept that.
All right, fine.